Okay. Well, Agustin wasn't able to come, so I personally want to thank Mr. Carmaura for inviting us to present our process of adaptation. Well, I'm not speaking really about the process itself because it's very long, it's very difficult, and it has many details. So I'm going to do a brief presentation of the process, but I want to point out that my paper has a story of encounter because we were just starting our organizational consultancy when we first came into this personnel, Pedro, which is the president of Tonka, which is the company which we work for in this adaptation. He wanted to measure happiness of his employees using GNH index, which I've never heard in my life. So I have heard about GNH, but not the index. I never know it. I know how the structure was, nothing like that. So that's the second encounter because I have to face with GNH index, which I never know. The second is, in the paper you will find a brief description of what we do, the process. We describe the process, not with great detail, but we described it. And some thoughts about the approach to happiness that we discover, because we are new to this, we can be wrong. So I want to share our findings because I'm learning this, okay? Then you're going to find a list of faults. There are some things that were wrong, and we knew about that when we started the adaptation process. We are only going to have 68 people, which is less than is necessary for a serious academic adaptation. And a list of findings, things that we find out doing it. So that's more or less what we're going to find in the written paper. But I want to start from another point here, and I want to start with pears and bananas. Because when I was 14 years old, I have this math teacher who was explaining us the polynomial equations, and he wanted us to understand that we can't add x to square x. And he pointed out that the x was pears and the square x were bananas, and we can't add them because it's forbidden. We didn't get it. So he insisted so many times that we was very annoyed about the metaphor of pears and the bananas. But I kept that things in my head, in my mind, for some reason, and they came back when I learned about complexity, because complexity is how to add pears to bananas in any possible way. And that way of thinking is limited in mathematics, but the arts has a great lead on how to solve this. So if we are going to talk about complexity, we have to embrace another ways of thinking. And in some countries, there are some other fruits. It's not just pears and bananas. Every country will find a way to combine different aspects into their own reality, because reality is going to be an emerging outcome of this complexity. The reality is a construction that people made with this complexity. So it's not a given thing. It's something we built. So, complexity. Complexity, happiness, is a complex outcome. So it turned out that there's many things that interact to achieve a happiness outcome. And our problem was to define which were the relevant things, not all, but the relevant ones. So GNH has a very good clue on how to make these domains. And we are going to embrace a multidimensional approach with where we want to keep the word domain instead of dimension, because we think that the domains interact one to each other. and they are not 90 degrees separated. They are not orthogonal. So we are not expecting to have different dimensions. We embrace the idea of domain as a way to express our concern with the complexity. And the principle of uncertainty that Heisenberg brought up in physics, that means that to measure is to disturb. We don't have the ability to measure without disturbing. So if you are going to measure happiness, we are going to disturb. But disturbance is a word that has a negative association. And I think in this case it's a positive disturbance to measure happiness in a company. So we have, the question has an effect for itself. It makes us to think. Things that we are not thinking all day in our all-day life. So it produces moments of awareness and introspections in the subjects that they never considered to have. So to measure, to ask, is just an action itself. In example, we ask in the index about the garbage disposal. What has to do the garbage disposal with the happiness? It makes you think about it. It's not obvious. You have to do some work in your mind. So, to do an adaptation and to measure in a company implies that everybody have to get involved. The hierarchy of the company, in our case, was easy because Pedro brought the index to us, not us to him. The mid-level bosses and the union representatives, which in Argentina, the union representatives are very powerful people. No, we have to deal with Unión Obreros Metalúrgicos, Metallurgical Workers Union, which is one of the most important and powerful unions in Argentina. Some companies have inside about 10 different unions to deal with. So it's a complex scenario. And to explain to the individuals, the people that were going to answer the questions, what we were doing, and to ask them about their ideas about happiness. So we have these interviews with some of these people to ask them what they think about happiness. So we have to protect them because in Argentina we have this history of military dictators later that nobody wants to give any information because it can be turned into your own. You can be hurtful for you. I don't know how to say it. So we had to make a contract and assure them that their information was for us and not for the company. And we are only showing information in a way they can be identified. And we let them do it or not, because we respect their decisions. We can't obligate them to do this survey. How to make this possible? Because we started with the GNH index that was originally in English, and it has questions that doesn't apply to our culture, our society. It doesn't have the similarity of concepts, or they just don't fit the way we talk. The questions were made in a way that nobody in Argentina could understand it. So we have to integrate different sources, translate it to Spanish, and integrate them into one single questionnaire, a very big one, unfortunately, and do it check item by item about the structures, the words, the intention, and the way the questions were made. So that was the core of the process of adaptation, because we have to be aware about the emic and etic concepts to deal with. and think the best possible way to ask them that thing, that concept, in our language, with our words, in the way the people talk all day. And go check it, because we think it's very understandable, but when we go to check it, we have to change 100 questions. So it wasn't that obvious. Okay, then we have to take care for everyone, because the company wants us to do it by computer. So we make it a computer version, but we warn them that maybe some people in the company can't do it because they don't have a computer, because they don't have enough literacy to understand the questions by reading them, or because they have the computer but they don't have internet at home, for example. So we have to separate in 4 groups, and each group has to do the questionnaire in a different version. Some of them do it by paper, some of them do it with a helper one-to-one, and some of them got a link in their emails and do it at home. So we have to design the experience for everybody of these people. There was accessibility issues, like I told before. We have to think individual to versus group for people who fill the questionnaire. We have to figure out if you want to do computer or paper-based, self-conductor or ask and explain, and all the possibilities you may want to consider, because that was my experience with 68 people. Maybe there are other things to take in account. And to get into the action, get the feedback of the process information with very high responsibility, because we are talking about people, and present the results to everyone who was involved in a way they can understand it. Because if they understand the results, they can do something with it. And one thing that is very important about GNH index is that it lets you take actions about the things the index has to show. So it is very important that everyone get involved in the action of doing something for their own happiness, from the happiness of the people surrounding them, for the happiness in their family houses, and for everyone in their community.
1 minute remaining.
Just perfect. Our next step is going to be to improve it. And for improving it, we're going to need your help, because we are new to this, and we are going to surely make some mistakes in this process, and we are very excited to become a part of this community. And Jorge, a while ago, said capitalism was the past. Now we have a transition moment which has no name. Maybe the name has to be capitalism. Thank you very much.